Conflict surrounded Mary Parker Follett. From the time of her birth in post-Civil War Reconstruction New England, to the explosion of the Industrial Revolution, then unionization, women's suffrage, and a world war. However, she did not fear friction, she focused on it. Follett observed three different types of conflict resolution: domination, victory of one side over the other; compromise, where both sides surrender something to end the conflict; and integration, where the ideas of all sides are considered and ultimately woven together. She saw the power of conflict and differences being used to produce a new result. Her concepts relied heavily on the principle of power with, as opposed to power over. She felt that genuine power was not coercive, power over, but rather coactive, power with. Follett came up with four main principles of coordination. They are coordination in the early stages. It's the idea that you must start with a plan if you're going to succeed. Then there's the principle of continuity, the idea that coordination must occur in every phase of the organization's development. She then came up with the coordination by direct contact, and it is as it sounds. Managers must have direct contact with their employees on a regular basis. It builds trust and cuts down on misunderstandings. And finally, the principle of reciprocal relations. Everything in an organization is connected. Every action and decision needs to be considered before it is taken, anticipating the outcome. Her ideas were sometimes in conflict with the father of scientific management, Frederick Taylor. Taylor believed the ultimate power resided with the manager. Differences in knowledge and intellectual ability gave him the right to manage. I emphasize him because Follett was never allowed to manage. Follett's ideas could be revered, but she could not personally implement them in the workplace. Follett is considered a prophet of management, but her frustrations with gender restrictions and the workplace turned her focus to the social issues of the time. She worked with communities to form community centers, and this is where she developed her theories. She imagined a working style where employees were empowered to participate and management and non-management could work together as leaders. Anyone could be a leader. This enabled those with the expertise to speak up, to solve problems or issues, and it would lead to increased productivity. She observed groups to learn more about how they function. Relationships and groups were an important part of how business would function in the future. By being able to offer new ideas within a group, a creative energy is spread and people learn to collaborate. Opposing views are welcomed and thus democracy is achieved. Follett denounced the power of leadership lying in dictatorship, and she believed progress is not determined then by economic conditions, by physical conditions, nor by biological factors solely, but more especially by our capacity for genuine cooperation. Leadership thrives when leaders abandon the need to control and dominate, and emerges within the dynamic interactions of daily organizational existence. Here's a modern example. President Barack Obama demonstrates a keenness to attend to all voices when deciding on a strategic direction. This was most evident as members of his cabinet and military advisors discussed war policy in relation to Afghanistan and the proposed surge in troop numbers. Klein notes that Obama asked sharp, Socratic questions of everyone in the Situation Room. He would notice when an advisor wasn't participating, and he'd ask, "What do you think about this, Hillary or Bob or Jim?" This enabled the president to make the call to increase troop numbers, knowing that those charged with the responsibility of enacting the command had participated in making the decision. Going forward, technology will further break down the barriers of time and distance, thus shifting the power and changing the conflict dynamic. In the time of Follett and Taylor, confrontation and friction were usually the result of interpersonal interactions, where ideas were not valued and employees were treated as replaceable cogs. Today, companies covet employees who possess ideas and insight. No longer are they trapped by geography, gender, or gentry. Just like choosing a graduate school, employees can now shop their assets. Employers and educators must compete for talent, and through that competition, democratization of the workplace is achieved, just as Follett had predicted.